Hi, it's Jeff with Cribl. In this video, we're going to walk through configuring a new Syslog source in Cribl Stream, Cribl's data processing engine. We'll focus on the setup of this in a Cribl Cloud account, Cribl's as-a-service offering, and the best way to take advantage of the suite of products. You can sign up today for a free 1 TB account with no credit card required. Just visit cribl.cloud. Note that most of these steps will also apply to an on-premise or customer-managed installation. Let's get started. Here are the general steps we'll follow. First, we'll need to configure a source in Cribl Stream. We'll send our log and event data to this source. We have an option here, send to the Cribl hosted and fully managed cloud workers, or if we want to manage workers in our own environment, we can easily spin up hybrid or self-managed workers and send the data to those. We'll cover both scenarios in this video, but pick the one that is best suited for your environment. Your Cribl account team is happy to help you with any questions and can provide guidance if needed. Once the stream source is configured, we then configure our actual Syslog Sender, such as a firewall device or Syslog tool like Syslog to point to the Cribl Workers. The workers will receive the data, and from there, we can optimize and enrich our data however we see fit. We'll simulate this part with a test. Finally, we can create pipelines and routes to get the optimized data to our final destinations. We can also use packs, Cribl's pre-built content of pipelines, to give us a jump start on creating these. We would also set up one or more destinations to route the data to, and you may want to set those up before you send the source data. This session will focus on the task of creating a Cribl stream source for Syslog data and testing it. We'll use the Cribl hosted managed workers for the first scenario. In this case, we'll be sending logs to the SaaS workers. We won't need to set up any infrastructure or workers ourselves. In our cloud homepage, we'll pick the Manage option for Stream. I'm using the new Cribl UI, but no worries if yours looks just a little different. Just select the Manage box for Stream. In our Stream main page, we can see our worker groups. Each group has its own unique configurations like sources, destinations, and pipelines. Every worker in the group has the exact same configuration, so we only have to set things up once. We're going to select the default group. This has our cloud-hosted workers that are already provisioned and ready to process our data. If you don't see any workers, they will need to be provisioned. You can do this by clicking on the group settings in the middle bar, and then click the slider for provision infrastructure. Note that provisioning may take a few minutes. Going back into our default group, we then select Data, and then Sources. This is where we configure all of our stream sources to send our data to. In the filter box, let's type Syslog. This should leave the tile for Syslog showing, and let's click on it. For our cloud workers, we see that we already have two sources configured for us. One is listening on port 9514 for both TCP and UDP traffic. Note that this one does not have encryption, but may be useful for data centers that don't support or need it, like those using UDP. The other source is listening for TCP traffic on port 6514 and does include TLS. This means that Cribl has provided and manages the certificates needed for encrypted transmission. If we click on the TLS source, we can see other options we can configure, such as adding fields if we want to enrich our events. You'll find similar options on all the sources and destinations in Stream. Note that we don't want to change the TLS or port settings for the pre-configured cloud sources so that we don't disrupt the networking and handshaking. Since these sources are already configured, we only need to know how to send data to them. We can get that info by returning to the cloud homepage, expanding the menu, and clicking Data Sources. This shows all of the sources, their type, and the access information we use to configure our upstream data centers. If we want to use the non-TLS source, for example, we could copy that value to our clipboard. We would then enter this value into our data center and get data into Stream. Note that Cribl also provides load balancing in front of the source, so our data will be distributed across all of the workers evenly. Since the stream source is configured, we can configure our upstream center to send logs to it. This might be our network device like a firewall, a Syslog tool like Syslog, or any other system that can utilize Syslog to send data out. We'll go back to our data source. We'll click on the non-TLS Syslog source and open it, and click the Live Data tab. Stream gives us the ability to do a live data capture. We'll click the Capture button on the right, set a capture time of 600 seconds to give us a longer time window, and click Start. If events flow in, we should see them here. Let's try to send some. We'll simulate this by sending events with a Netcat or NC command. In a terminal window on a system with Netcat, we'll run NC, followed by the value we copied to the clipboard from the access details, and the port. This opens the connection and we can type in text to simulate events. When hitting enter, we see each event show up in our capture. If this were a real data source, we could save this capture and then use it to work on our data pipelines and see our potential changes in real time. We've covered the first option, using the SaaS managed Cribl Cloud workers, but in some cases we may want to provision our own workers in our own data center or cloud environments to process our data. We call these hybrid workers, and we'll look at this scenario next. We can use the default hybrid group or create our own. I've created my Roby group and have a worker bootstrapped and assigned to it. Let's click on the group and, like in the first scenario, go to Data and then Sources. We'll look for Syslog and click on it. You may see a default Syslog source already set up that we can use. If you don't have one, just click Add Source. We'll click on this one and then see the configuration options. First, we'll slide the enabled slider to Yes to activate the source. This one is configured for TCP and UDP listeners on port 9514. I'm going to leave these as is, but you could change or remove them depending on your particular needs. Remember that any ports we expect the workers to listen on must also be open in network and firewall rules to allow the traffic from the originating sources to reach them. On the left, we have more configuration options, such as TLS for encryption and additional fields. For this example, we won't configure those, but there is an option that will help for TCP data streams. Click on the Advanced Settings, and note the last slider on the top right called Enable TCP Load Balancing. This allows the Syslog events to be spread across all of the worker processes, or CPUs, instead of being stuck to a single one. Note that this does not replace the usefulness of a load balancer in front of the Cribl Workers, but for TCP feeds, this setting is recommended. Check out our Syslog docs at docs.cribl.io or reach out to your Cribl team if you need more information. This setup is complete for now, so we'll click Save on the bottom right. The UI now shows the source is enabled, but like with most things in Stream and Edge, we need to commit and deploy to make the changes active in our workers. We'll click the Commit and Deploy button on the top right, detail what we did in the comment, and click Commit and Deploy on the bottom right. After a short time, the source should show live. Cribl Stream can now receive Syslog messages. Let's click back into the source and go to the Live Data tab to do another data capture. We'll click the Capture button on the right, set a capture time of 600 seconds, and then click Start. Just as we did for the cloud workers, let's do a test from a command line in Netcat to confirm connectivity. This system needs to have network access to a worker, so make sure if you test it, the routing and firewalling allows your traffic. I've already opened up my security groups for this worker on AWS. Once again, we'll run nc and use the IP address of the worker and the port we chose. We'll type in some events and see them appear in our capture. We've now successfully set up a hybrid worker to receive our Syslog data feeds. And now that our source is set up and data is flowing, we can apply a pipeline to it and route the data to one or more of our destinations. A pipeline is a set of functions that lets us optimize our data. We could perform operations like dropping fields or entire events that we don't need, adding enrichment, or changing our data to fit whatever we require. And routes let us send our optimized events to any destinations we need. In this video, we've been able to configure our cloud or hybrid workers to receive Syslog messages. Our cloud workers are pre-configured, they include encryption, and are load balanced. If we choose to use hybrid or customer-managed ones, we can use a custom configuration to suit our needs. We gave them both a quick test to confirm that everything was working. From here, we're ready to configure our data senders, construct the pipelines, and route the events to their final destinations. If you want to learn more, check out our documentation at docs.cribl.io. You might want to try out our free sandboxes at sandbox.cribl.io. And join us at the community.cribl.io to be part of the GOAT herd. Thank you so much for watching.